And last but certainly not least, we have Miss Stephanie Perry. Stephanie is a writer and independent historical researcher who lives on the west side of Buffalo. She is interested in the ways urban environments shape personal narratives and experiences. She studied history and journalism at Boston University. Stephanie.
Okay. Hello. This talk is about small civic spaces in and around Buffalo. I'm going to move pretty quick because I have a lot of concepts I want to cover. Informing some of my thinking on this topic are the book The Social Life of Small Urban Spaces by William White and the essay Why Everyday Architecture Deserves Respect by Darren Anderson. Images were borrowed mostly from the Buffalo News and Buffalo Rising and some other local sites. So what I mean by small civic spaces is not this. Often the spaces we most readily revere are associated with power. Great buildings for great men, most often white and wealthy, and their corporations. And I want to focus on engendering an appreciation for human-scale spaces, often publicly accessible, indoors and out, where all kinds of people are able to visit for free or a very small fee. Delaware Park, big space. Well, why? These places represent a coming together of public resources for the public good. Too often, libraries, parks, schools come under attack as needless government waste. If we don't celebrate the small places supported by public and simple folks, we risk undervaluing and ultimately losing them. This is the Wen Cottage over on Bailey Avenue. It's a cute little button, very charming. But because spaces like this are modest and not associated with presidents and corporate power, they're at high risk of neglect and complete loss. This building was actually recently landmarked, but it's in better shape now, but it still needs a lot of work and attention. This is the Crane Library, which is actually the branch in my neighborhood. It was built in 1955, designed by Backus, Crane, and Love, and it's an incredible asset to the Elmwood Village. This little place reminds me of my childhood in a lot of ways. And Darren Anderson wrote, there's something innately childlike or nostalgic with small spaces. If we could think of a place that's more like a playhouse or a dollhouse or a model village, it would probably be Little Summer. And this is an area where we've actually seen really wonderfully preserved and maintained cottages. These are places where we see workmanship from the past representing city residents and their importance now. Canalside is a decent outdoor civic space. It can be a challenge to create areas with a critical mass to capture the energy of an area in a small city like Buffalo. Canalside does a decent job with this as flexible seating, affordable cafe dining, but there is a corporate style that stifles some opportunities. If we look at this, we see that a lot of small spaces actually just go to parking. So I live in the Elmwood Village, which means that I walk down this area often, and on Saturdays in the summer, this is transformed into a flea market. It's really great, but most days of the week, most seasons of the year, it goes to 30 or so cars, which is a loss of public space that could otherwise be a little bit more engaging or activated. This is the reading park that we just opened downtown. Well, not me, but other people. And it's really great. It gives us an opportunity of what we can have for a public space for reading and leisure where people can hang out and they're not required to buy something or make that the focus of why they are somewhere. And we also see that in some spaces at the Albright Knox. As part of their expansion project, they've committed to an indoor town square, which will include a canopy courtyard. And just this past weekend, to talk a little about myself, I saw a similar space at the National Portrait Gallery, where people are just working, lunching, studying, doing things and being in public and not needing to, purchase things and engage in commerce, which is important. So we see these murals on Elmwood and around the city. Murals have become a huge part of the Buffalo Renaissance narrative, but oftentimes they just back up to parking lots. Why do the best views go to cars? That's not good. And here we have Gate Circle, which is a beautiful place to sit or hang out, but it's almost impossible to get to. When was the last time you walked there confidently? Maybe in the middle of the night? I don't know. So it'd be wonderful if we could make this into something more like DuPont Circle, not to talk about my vacation again, where people can sit and hang out and read and eat. And Lafayette Square, which we have just adjacent to the Reading Park downtown, actually has signs there that say lounging around monument prohibited, which a friend of mine pointed out recently, which is so ridiculous. Why would we prohibit lounging? What we want to do is create welcoming spaces for people, for civic people. And what happens if we don't do this, if we don't create value in common people's spaces? Well, we end up with places like Willard Park Courts, which is actually designed by the same firm that did the Crane Library. And this space is on the 11 most endangered historic places list. And, you know, it was a place for common Buffalonians, people of humble roots, including Rick James. And what happens when we devalue the public access to places like, you know, even transit stations, which are technically places? We end up with this monstrosity where we have this weird branding. We've decided that this isn't a place that we want to dignify as being a place for people. This is actually the Summer Best Station. I love this one, and it has not yet found a corporate sponsor. So, you know, it looks really great. And it's a place where people can come and go and take respite from the weather, and you know, this is like what we want to celebrate and encourage. And just as a one last thing, you know, we want to remember the like small businesses in our town. Sometimes when we think about Buffalo, we think about Trico and like the steel corporations and all the things that were big. But little, you know, mom and pops are a big part of our history as well. And I really love the neon signs that we have in Niagara Falls. Like I have like a dream that we'll gather them all in some like neon junkyard or something. You know, if we can't keep them up, some of them have already gone missing. But we shouldn't limit ourselves to our search for ideas how to use, reuse, and rehabilitate small spaces. Here's one that's looking really great. Small places that ordinary people use deserve our admiration, respect, and innovation.